Hi guys, and welcome back to Music Studio 60 and Nash Jingle's YouTube page. Today we are going to look at our first guitar review for 2022, and may I say this is a very special guitar, and you'll find out why in just a moment. But before we get into that, welcome back Ian Nash from Nash Jingles.
Thank you, Vogel.
Great to have you on board.
Yep.
Back again for another episode.
Great to be back.
Don't forget, before I forget, to hit the subscribe button and notification button if you haven't already done so, to stay in touch with any new episodes that we put up, and we've got a lot of them coming through the year. I won't go into it now, but we will let you know what we have coming up throughout this year. Back to today's episode.
Yes.
We are going to look at a bass guitar.
Sure.
In particular, this particular bass, a Vantage VS-600-B. Now,
The which bass?
the which bass? Which one? That one. That is a beautiful looking bass.
Oh, it sure is. This is a real classic.
Yeah, and I say that absolutely biased as all get out, because I've
It's
just
yours.
purchased this bass. And yeah, it's one of those basses, it just looks great. I've always been a fan of the bigger bodied basses, you know, your Alembics, your Gibson Grabber type. I just like the look of the big body. The Vantage has had that, and this one has it as well.
Yeah.
It's just a great looking bass. Now, I have to say, in looking at this bass, I found it on Facebook Marketplace, and I went to Ian to get his thoughts on it, because obviously Ian buys and sells in guitars, and in particular vintage guitars. And Ian actually, on behalf of me, took over the transaction, did a whole heap of research. His lovely wife Honor negotiated the price for me, and I might add, negotiated a very good price. Ian, take us through what you found out about the bass,
Okay.
or what you know about the
Right.
bass.
So this is what we know. This Vantage, we're a Canadian guitar company. Around early 1970s, through to about 1987, and then they shut shop. A lot of their, if not all their basses and guitars were made in Japan, in the Matsumoto factory, which
Yep.
is well known and has one of the best reputations as a Japanese guitar manufacturer. And they've made great guitars for Vantage, Ibanez, Epiphone, Aria, Tokyo. You name those big brands, they made the guitar, and they made literally tens of thousands of quality guitars and basses.
And I think it's fair to say, if you're a guitarist and and someone talks about the Matsumoto era or factory, you'll know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
For someone like me who had heard of the Matsumoto guitars in conversation but didn't really know, Ian's right. The Matsumoto factory ran from probably the mid-70s, late 70s through to about the late 80s, and they gained that reputation of making quality guitars. Now, they made low-end stuff, they made high-end stuff, but all of it is considered to be collectible and quality now.
That's right. I mean, we're 35 years on.
Yeah.
So everything now is vintage.
Yeah.
In those broad terms.
Yeah.
The great thing about those 70s and 80s Japanese guitars, at the time, and it's great with hindsight. At the time, there was a big part of the guitar market that frowned upon them. But really, those guitars are equal to anything that was coming out of the United States at the time. In fact, you could argue that some of the stuff that Japan was producing was far superior to the CBS era Fenders and the Northern era Gibsons.
Yeah.
And now in the vintage guitar market, starting to fetch big money.
Well, I guess the proof is in the pudding, because that guitar, you've determined, looking at the serial numbers, that it's a 1981 model.
Yeah, May 1981.
Yeah. So that's now a 41-year-old guitar.
Yes.
I mean, look at it. It's a spectacular guitar. It stood the test of time.
I mean, and this bass has been, I wouldn't say heavily used, but it's been used for gigging and a bit of studio work.
Yep.
And you can tell.
Yep.
So it hasn't been left in its hard shell case for 40 odd years. But I mean, it's an absolute stunner.
Yep.
I mean, beautiful craftsmanship. I mean, it's well balanced. I mean, the great thing about Vantage guitars is very similar to the alembic style, without that huge, massive price.
Yeah.
You know, you could, you know, a little bit of work to it, and this would be perfect for gig work. If you wanted to take it out on a gig, but it's going to be the perfect studio recording bass. Absolutely. And the rich tone, it's got that precision style pickup system.
Yep.
I mean, it's got a really nice action
and feel.
Yeah. This would be a go-to bass for recording, jamming in studio.
And you know, the thing I like about it, and one of the things that's attracted me to it is it's a fairly basic bass, I guess, for want of a better description. For someone like me who's not necessarily professional, who doesn't read music, who may not have the depth of musical knowledge, it's all you need. It's one pickup. Yeah, with your knobs, it's a tone and a volume. It's not complicated.
No switches. No, it's not.
It's just
it's
a
not
good, solid, down to earth.
passive bass.
Yeah.
No
And-
diffs, no nothing.
Yeah, but it's been thought out. Like I was doing some research where they've located the pickups. They haven't just whacked them on anywhere. They've balanced them where they have for a reason.
Yes.
They're not all the way up in the treble end near the neck. They're not. Sorry.
The bridge end.
The bridge. Yeah.
The fret end or the bridge end?
No, the fret
That's
end
right.
for bass.
Yeah.
And they're not all the way down at the bridge end,
Yeah.
which gives you more treble, I think.
Yes, that's right.
So they've sort of centered it. Well, they've optimized where they put it. So it's well thought out.
Yeah, because there's the VS600-B2, which has the
Dual pickup.
which has a jazz and a precision split.
Yeah.
The precision split is at the neck end,
Yeah.
and the jazz, similar to the Fender precision bass, it has the jazz style pickup closer to the bridge.
Yeah.
So, and it gives you that different tone. And then, of course, having a three-way switch, you can have neck, both, or bridge,
Yeah.
and then it gives you a whole variety. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just some specs on the bass for those that are interested. And of course, I'm going to my trusty iPhone. If you're looking at the guitar or the body and wondering what it's made of, it's actually mahogany body with a maple center block, which is the center block, and those two stripes that you see going down the center block are actually walnut.
Wow.
So walnut stripes.
So you got the three big timbers.
Three big timbers, and obviously quality timbers too.
Oh, yeah.
And still to this day, popular
Well, I mean,
throughout the guitar world.
you know, because you have got guitar collectors out there. It's mahogany or nothing.
Yes. Yeah. And getting to the fretboard, it's the same sort of thing. We
Yeah.
were talking earlier off camera, you know, for someone like me who doesn't know or isn't as much into it, whether it's a laminated mahogany fretboard like this, or a maple wood, or rosewood,
Ebony.
or ebony, you know, look, to me, I'm flat out telling the difference. But to the purist, to the professional, to the trained, you know, that can pick the difference in sounds, that's a big thing. And
Well, it is. And once again, for the purists out there, and it's not just the guitar collectors, it's the high-end recording artists. It means a lot. Different basses for different tracks, you know. And you know, there are some musicians out there. It's all mahogany, or it's nothing, or it's all rosewood in acoustics, or it's nothing. You know, when you play a mahogany versus a rosewood acoustic, you can really tell the difference.
Yeah.
A little bit different when it comes to solid body guitars,
Yeah.
but there is a difference, and like I said, the purists will tell you the difference.
And it comes down to a personal playing style too. You know, you listen to Joe Bonamassa talk about his guitars, and he sets them a certain way. He sets them up the way he likes them to play, and the type of materials used is the same. It comes down to personal taste and the sound that you.
And that's a good point, John. And you see a lot of people say, "Oh, just set my guitar up." Well, guitar setups are very personal.
Yeah.
When you're getting a guitar set up and you leave it at the shop or the technician and you get it done, he's going to set it up either the way he likes it or in a general way.
In the middle of the road.
Absolutely. A little bit different to a factory setup, of course. But, setups are very personal, and you can, once again, the purists like it a set way. For me, 9 albums, I've been playing guitars for over 45 years now. I don't worry too much about setup. If the setup is good, the intonation is good, there's no fret buzz, and it plays well, I'm happy. I'm a happy man.
Yeah. Whether
Whether it's a Fender, a Gibson, Guild, or Taylor, or whatever, if it works, don't mess with it.
Yeah, very good. And having played this guitar, let me say, you mentioned it earlier, the action is superb.
Yeah.
It's got a nice feeling neck. It looks like a big heavy bass, and you would expect it to be, but it's actually not.
No, it is. It's on the heavy side.
Oh,
but
it's a solid bass.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not one. Certainly not as heavy as some of the high-end Gibsons.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you might recall one of the
Audience.
episodes we did last year. We looked at a Epiphone Les Paul bass of mine with the sunburst colour. Man, that thing weighs a ton.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that's almost double the weight of that, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like you play the Les Paul bass.
You couldn't play it all night.
No, that's right. 45 minutes in, you're going to have to change. Whereas this, I think, you were saying you could gig with that. That could be a stage guitar, and you could pretty well play that all night.
Yeah.
So, look, thanks for taking us through the guitar, Ian. I
Yep.
appreciate it. Something else I wanted to talk about, and I alluded to it earlier, is you work as a guitar broker,
Yep.
seller, and buyer. And in this case, I utilised those services to buy
That's
the
right.
guitar. Because for me, it was a guitar I've always liked the look of. But being a Vantage, it's not as commonly well known as your Gibsons, Fenders, Gretches. So my knowledge was somewhat limited. So I approached you to get some advice and to get some research. We had a dollar price on it that the seller wanted. And do you know, is that good value? Are they having a lender view? And by utilising the services of a broker who's experienced in this field, was just sensational. I was able to buy at a much better rate or price than I had anticipated, probably a better price than I would have been able to negotiate. But more importantly, with a whole lot more confidence and knowledge of the guitar I was buying.
So that's right, John. So you came to us and said, "Hey, I'm looking at this on marketplace." So we had a look as well, and we had a lot of contacts worldwide. So we were able to compare this, first without seeing it, but just seeing it on face value, compared to the market. What's on the marketplace? Well, there's not a lot of Vantage VS-600 bases on the market. There are a few in Australia. At first value, this was it was well priced. It was sitting in the middle of the range.
Yeah.
It was well priced. We did a bit of research. We were able to get some good photos. We were able to check the serial number, and that's quite important.
Yep.
It's not the be all end all, but once again, you've got the serial number. You can then work out dates and production numbers and so forth. We did that. Then, while I was doing research and working out whether it was, not so much good value, but whether it was a good base to buy for your collection, my wife Anna, she started the negotiations. That's her
forte.
Yeah, and so she was negotiating with the seller, and so we got him down to a pretty reasonable price, and then we secured that. At the same time, I'm talking to you, saying, this is the one to go for. These are the pros, these are the cons. Obviously, the pros outweigh the cons. It's something that you really, really wanted. As a vintage guitar, it represents exceptional value for money for the price we ended up getting it for. We were able to provide the funding for you to go and buy.
Yep.
And because it was a cash deal.
Yep.
Cash
Is
in vintage is key, absolutely. Because you can, with your for whatever reason the seller is selling the guitar for, or the bass for, if you've got cash in front of you, you've got the negotiating upper hand.
Yep.
And that's how we work. And we're very proud to able to broker the deal for you.
And look, it was sensational. It made buying the bass a whole much nicer experience.
Because all you had to do in the end of the day was
go and pick it up.
Yeah, go pick it up,
Yep.
give them the cash,
Yep. And come back here.
and come back here,
Yep.
give it to us. We'll do the once over.
Yeah.
We're going through at the moment, checking it out. And once again, on face value, this is a really, really good board.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see these every day. And not in this condition anyway.
And let's be honest, you've given it the once over, and
Yeah.
we've picked up a few niggly little things that need attention, but it is a 41-year-old guitar.
That's exactly right.
So, and
not
we
only
factored that into or you guys factored that into the negotiations and the price. Now, the point I want to make and get back to, if I may, Ian, is when you're talking about the serial numbers, but just the factoring in the negotiation is, for someone like me, you don't necessarily know exactly what you're dealing with. When it comes to serial numbers, in a cheaper end guitar like this, if you're only buying a $200,000, $500,000 guitar, maybe it's not quite so important. But when you're dealing with vintage guitars like you do, and you're up in the realms of $20,000 57 Les Pauls and Fender Strats, again, serial numbers are key. You've got to know.
They are the starting point. Absolutely.
Or speak to someone who's familiar with them for verification.
Well,
is it the real deal?
That's right. And like I say to people, serial numbers are the starting point. Of course, there are some pretty interesting characters out there. Does the serial number match that guitar? There are other things to look for, the pots and the volume and tone pots, because high-end guitars will have production dates on that too. Do the production dates match the serial numbers? Do the serial numbers match what the guitar or the bass looks like? Yeah. And even with the leading brands, the Fenders, the Gibsons, the Gretschers, the Gills, what may have started out as a production model, by the time they get to the end of that production line, those guitars have changed somewhat, and so you may still end up getting the real deal, but it looks a little bit different to what it did in the first production. Then, if you're buying a second hand, people do aftermarket changes too. Yeah. And what may have been an aftermarket change doesn't necessarily mean that the guitars are fake. It just means that person's modified that guitar for their specific use. Because at the end of the day, these guitars are generally for use, not just to be looked at.
Well, and that's the point. It's having someone who knows that information and can feed you the information is great. Now, if a serial number doesn't quite match up, or if you say something looks different, that's not automatically a bad thing.
No.
But it's just something for you to factor in.
Absolutely.
Into your purchase, into your negotiation.
We've had Gibson guitars that, for whatever reason, you just can't read the serial number, or they had mattress set styles serial numbers on the necks. Now they wear out after 20, 30 years. It makes that whole deal thing, and the negotiation very, very different. That's an extra phase to it. But like I said, there are other ways that you can date and check out the authenticity of the guitar.
Well, and you've in times gone by, we've talked about, I think, a particular Gibson guitar you had that was a prototype.
Yeah.
So the serial numbers didn't match up with the normal run, because this was one that was made before the normal run, and the serial numbers. So as a broker, as a collector, as a seller, you're aware of this. I wasn't, and that's when you were saying.
That's right, because
you start looking at things like what's on the pots.
Yeah.
You pull covers off the back, and on different guitars, there's different things and indications.
And see, with some guitars where they've got bolt-on necks, the serial number could be on the inside
of the neck.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the date stamp.
Yeah.
Production date stamp. Not necessarily serial number, but production date stamp. That's just what you learn over the years. Yeah. Very different if it's a set neck. That's a bolt-on neck, but a set neck, like on Gibson's and so forth, that's something you've got to factor in.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So once you go, mate,
it's a great bass.
Great
and
bass.
look, I was more than likely 9 out of 10 times I was going to buy this base regardless. But having used the services of a broker or an expert, it's just made it a much more pleasurable, fulfilling purchase because I've bought the base knowing a whole lot more about it. I guess that's the point I'd like to get across when it comes to using a broker or a professional, be it in a music shop perhaps, or someone like Ian, that if you're like me and you're into it, but you're not right into it and you don't know these things, sometimes it's worth the little bit extra to use that expertise to make sure that the purchase is what you think it is, and more importantly, that it is the value that you think it is or that you want it to be.
Yeah.
And if it's not quite as it seems, then you can, nothing to say you don't buy it, but you can adjust, you know, how much you want to
Your
pay for it, or you buy it knowing that it has these quirks. So once again, mate, I am absolutely stoked with that. That's another base for the collection. Base number 6.
Cool.
So yeah, and certainly we got more to come, and I'll be using you as well. So that's great. So once again, mate, thank you very much.
No, it's my
The
pleasure.
Vantage VS-600-B base.
The Witch Bitch.
The Witch Bitch, the Witch base, that base.
That one.
So guys, stay tuned. Next episode, we're going to look at using a price guide, and we're going to review a particular price guide that Ian as a broker uses as part of his research and basing purchases on. And this is the Bible, I guess, that Ian uses for his purchases, not only for customers, but for his own collection. So stay tuned for that. We'll catch you next time. See ya.
See ya.